been a parent for quite some time, and I also know that it's important to you to be faithful, and I see that many of you are continuing on who have been here before. This church has a good testimony throughout Australia. It's not that how people speak of you is everything, but it has a good testimony with the right people who regard and are thankful for pastor and for the work here. And I know that obviously you've dealt with a considerable trial, and pastor and his family particularly, but I appreciate your continuance for him. Thanks for praying for us about the work in Thailand. It's coming on, I think it might be 18 years, 17 at the moment, heading into 18 since we went to Thailand. And God is blessing. Thai people are getting saved. Certainly, I would say almost every month there's, some get saved. Many weeks, that's something that happens. And it's interesting over there. Really, mostly people will hear you out over there. Mostly you can talk to people about the gospel, and mostly they'll hear you out. The biggest obstacle, the biggest difficulty for Thai people in getting saved, they don't really argue that what you're saying is not true. Part of that's because they're polite, but also they're respectful of all religion. They have a certain fear about things, so they don't really argue. They listen, and many times they will say, "Can I be Buddhist and can I be Christian as well?" 96% of Thais are Buddhist, and for a Thai person, Buddhism is not just a religion; it really is identity for them. And they don't separate religion from other things in life. So it's fully encompassed in every part of Thai life. So every part. The army worships together, the police worship together, all students are led in worship before the Buddha every morning. They do a lot of activities with the temples, and they don't separate. It's just core to who they are. And so if they leave that, they often are alienated from their area, their village, sometimes quite seriously from their family. And so they do pay a cost, and most of our people have paid a cost. Now, we know that what you gain far exceeds anything you might lose, but nonetheless, it's a reality. And so if they could have both, they certainly would do that. But we explain to them that, we try to be careful in how we say things. We don't seek to be offensive, but we will explain, look, if you're on this road, then you're not on this road. And these roads, they go to different places. So you have to decide which road that you're going to be on. And but they do hear, they will listen, they think, they often think carefully. Most people who get saved after a few months after they initially heard the gospel. They really take time to think. People often sit in church for months before they make a salvation decision. But when they make it, it's enduring. We have very few who do not continue. Most people who have made a profession of faith are continuing on, serving, growing mostly. And so that's kind of the dynamic of how it is over there. I would say, having pastored here in Australia and tried to reach Australians, and I'm a fifth generation Australian. My family have been here since the early 1800s. I think Australia's getting harder. That's not a reason to quit or to stop talking to people, but there's a definite shift in the culture, an anti-God shift, and social media has empowered those voices. But I almost think it could be a little bit easier in Thailand. I'd almost say that. but maybe it's just different. So we're thankful for what God has done there. Thailand has been resistant to missions work for hundreds of years. There have been missionaries going in for at least a couple of hundred years when Thailand was called Siam. So Aussies, when they're over there, they say Siam, but it's Siam. And so when Thailand was called Siam, there were missionaries going in, and they had sort of, depending which king was reigning at the time, sometimes they were persecuted, sometimes they were allowed a certain free hand. There's a cemetery in Bangkok that most people don't know about, but it has there the graves of many of the missionaries who were in Thailand in the 1800s. And so it's an interesting place to go. People that books have been written about are buried there. Some are buried there with honours of the Thai king, that they were respected for what they did and brought to the kingdom at that time. So missionaries have been going in a long time. Of course, if you go there, and I remember thinking when I first went to Thailand, there's very little evidence of any sort of Christian mission work here, as in very few churches. It's quite common for a Thai to have never seen a church. Most certainly, the vast majority have never ever heard the gospel, and most would have possibly heard the name of Jesus Christ, but they wouldn't know too much of who he is. So there isn't. It's been resistant. It hasn't been like the Philippines. Let me say that. Those of you who are familiar with the work there, it's been a bit different. But God has done a remarkable work, and it has been him. Certainly hasn't been us, but it's been wonderful to see it. It's wonderful to walk amongst believers, to now walk on a property and around buildings, and those things are just tools for the ministry, and they'll pass away. But to just look and realize, there was nothing here, and now there is something, and God did that. So we rejoice in that. There's much yet to be done, many people to reach. Life over there is it's very gritty. Everything is played out in very graphic details. There are a lot of deaths. There are just a lot of tragic things that happen that really are quite heartbreaking. And you can't help, if you have a love for the people, to be moved by those things as they happen around us. There was a teenage boy died just the week when we left about 3 weeks ago, just drowned recently, and just to see his mother sobbing over his body, and to see that boy, looked about 15 and looked by all accounts in good health, and just to see the heartbrokenness of the family. And drownings happen there a lot. There was another young fella who was riding a motorcycle with his brother, and a semi-trailer just veered in front of them and swept them under the wheels. And the older brother was killed, and just to see the face of the younger brother who went under the trailer but came out again, and just the heart, just watching him cry, and you just can't. We have stuff like that happens all the time. Death is very common. Thailand has, I think it's second in the world for road fatalities. Part of that is the Buddhism perspective, which says, and interesting, when that boy drowned, his teacher from the school made the comment, these things happen and there's nothing we can do about any of this. This is ordained ahead of time, and it's part of what is meant to be played out in the cycle of life with Buddhism. So there's a resignation to bad things. They grieve, they cry, they're hurt, but there's just like a defeated resignation that says you can't do anything about any of this, and this just happens. And so, if over here, if you had a number of road fatalities on a certain road, somebody would look at that road and say, okay, there might be a problem there, because that has an unusual incidents happening there. Over there, they don't do that. They just say, well, that was meant to be, that was fated. They have They have two words. They have tembon, which is like to do good deeds and you get good thing back. And they have Wayne gum, which is almost like Wayne, isn't it? That's why I don't use that name much over there. But Wayne gum means when bad deeds come back on you. And so they just believe if bad things happen, you probably were a bad person in the life before. And so this is playing out in your life. If you're born into poverty, you were meant to be born into poverty because you probably weren't good before. If I'm born into wealth, a rich Thai will think, I'm born into wealth because I'm better than you. And I'm on a higher cycle, and I'm not just wealthy, I am better than you. And I'm higher and better, and you're lower. And so there's a part that the religious belief plays out just in life over there. And my heart is often broken for many people over there. I'm glad that after 17 years I haven't got over that. I still weep a lot. I'm still affected. When I drive out of where we live and drive through our town and look around, there are just thousands and thousands and thousands of people just in our immediate area who've never heard the gospel, don't know the truth, don't have any hope for heaven. If you ask a Thai, Buddhism teaches in its purest form, there's no God, there's no heaven, there's no hell. But I've learned that there's little value in studying theoretical Buddhism, but better it's just to learn the people and what they believe and what they live out. So you're better off just learning that. And you do that by immersing yourself in the culture, which we've done. But every Thai that I've ever met believes that there is a heaven and there is a hell. And they all believe in sin, and they all believe they've sinned. And if you say to them, well, what do you think you have to do to go to heaven? They will either say, I don't know, or they will say, try to be good to your family, don't hurt anyone, try not to sin too much. And if you say, even if you asked a monk in a temple, if you said, well, how much good have you got to do to be able to go to heaven? They will say, nobody can know this. And so there's kind of this cloud of darkness and heaviness that just hangs over the place. It's been a stronghold of demonic influences. They worship certain demons that they say rule over the country. And, I want you to contrast with here to there. I've seen the Prime Minister of Thailand go on the TV and make a broadcast to the whole nation and tell the people there are two chief demons that rule over Thailand. And can you imagine hearing this from Canberra? And saying to the people, you must be careful what you do and reverence these because they have been ruling Thailand for a long time. So you're living in a culture that's very, very believing in the supernatural, but doesn't know what's true, knows that they're demons, but they don't call them demons, they just call them pi or ghosts or spirits, we would say. They don't really know what they are, but they're scared of them. And so there's this thing going on over there, but God has been pleased to bless the preaching of the gospel. He does open hearts, and when people get saved, it's incredible what happens. There's just a tremendous change. They describe it as like they were in a dark room where they knew there were things there and they didn't know what they were, and they were scared of what was there. But when they got saved, it was like a light went on and they understood what was what. And they love God, they love Jesus, they sing from their hearts, they're incredibly glad to be saved, their lives change, things get better. So it's worth it, folks. Giving to missions is worth it. Praying like you do is worth it. And I thank you for that. Before I do our reading, and I'll work to time, I'll be done before time. I want to show you a picture of something that happened in January. So if I can put up the first picture there. One of the men that I led to Christ is in that blue shirt in that vehicle. And he was the second person I led to Christ since I went to Thailand. His Thai name is Narong Michai, but his name that everyone calls him by, including his family, is Dio. And the word Dio means one or alone, the only one. It comes from the word kondiao. So Dio was called Dio because Dio's father had 9 wives, and Dio's mother was one of the 9, and Dio, it was the only child of that lady. And so when he was very small, before going to school age, he was abandoned by both his father and his mother. And he had an elderly grandmother who would have been in her 70s then. And she was poor, but she raised him. And so he was very, very poor. And the grandmother would, catch insects from the mountain they could eat. She knew how to trap fish. He tells me on occasion she would walk, 20, 25 kilometres to a distant relative to ask for some rice. And so he grew up that way. I met him when he had moved to Bangkok to work. He was involved in a lot of things, I'll just say that. But he got wonderfully saved, and God changed his life. He attached himself to me probably about 15 years ago. He's been with me ever since. He's married. He has his own family now. And he's on staff serving. But in January, on a Sunday afternoon, he had dropped some people home. He was driving alone a little bit away from our church, and he had a very bad traffic accident. And so I'll show you the next picture. So he come off the road. You can see how bad it is. These people who are standing there are what they call in Thailand the rescue services. So when there's an accident in Thailand, it's different to here. So the first thing that is different is nobody goes to help. So nobody touches anybody. Nobody tries to initiate any sort of first aid, anything like that. They just stand back and look. And that's what happens every time. At best they will do, if there's someone lying there, they'll put up an umbrella and try to put some shade over them. But nobody touches anybody, tries to do anything, but often a crowd gathers. And so you don't call the ambulance. There's no national ambulance service. Nothing like that exists, like here in Australia. There's these individual charitable groups that are staffed by volunteers who will have a van or something, and they come and they cut you out and they put you on a stretcher, and they will have sort of a nurse figure, and they will get you to a government hospital. So he's had this accident. He told me he was slumped. He felt life leaving him. He felt he was going to die. He prayed. He said, I prayed. He was crying when he told me. He said, I prayed, God, forgive me of my sins, and please let me live, please. And so I'll show you the next picture. That's them getting him out. Now, there's another picture. There's a lot of people there. And what happened was, before the rescue people got there that you can see working, so he's had the accident, he's slumped over there, people start coming out, and there was about 30 people standing around the vehicle. And they were looking in and standing there, and they were waiting for the rescue people to come. And so they were just all gathered around, and this is quite common. And when you can show the next picture, when the rescue people got there and started to work, the people, they got Dio, and then the 30 people who were standing there, they said to the rescue people, there's 2 of them. And the rescue people looked, and they said, there's 2 in the car. There's another one there with him. We saw that. We're watching them. And so the rescue people were like, and they went and they looked in the car, and they were looking. The people said, they're in there. We've been watching. There's 2. And they were looking, and then the rescue people came back and said, there's only 1. And all the people said, no, there's 2. There's two. Show the next picture. And that's him being taken away. And so the people all said, there's two. And the rescue was saying, they were looking confused, and they said, there's only one. And so then all the people came and looked, and they went, oh. And then they all started talking. They said, where did he go? Where did he go? And they were all looking around, and they said, did you see him go? Did anybody see him go? And so they were saying, because the rescue people were just like, and, they just left with Dio. And the people were just all talking amongst themselves. How is it that we saw two people in the front, but there was only one? They say they only took one. Now, you can draw from that whatever conclusion you want to. I think I know what happened. And we do see things like that in Thailand a bit. I'll just say it this way. The darkness manifests itself over there in very visual ways. So I remember when I was pastoring in Australia, missionaries would come through and they would speak like I'm doing tonight. And I would sit on a chair in the platform, and sometimes they would tell a story about something that happened or something they saw. And I would be there and I'd be polite, but I know I'd be thinking in my heart, these guys always have these stories. And I'm not really sure that but whatever, And I wouldn't show any visible sign on my face. I'd just be, but I used to think that. And I used to think, well, I'd never seen anything like that. Now I'm the guy telling the stories. And so the darkness is very visual often over there. We see things that I've never seen here in Australia. But there seems to be a counter strength of God's revealing also that is also visual in a way that is unusual. All the people over there accept the reality of spiritual beings. Nobody argues about that. So there was a lot of talk about that. We go to the next picture. What happened was this man, Dio had been witnessing to this man for years and years, and this man had not got saved. But he had listened to Dio, and he was from that area, and he'd listened to Dio over and over again. So the people who'd all been around the car knew that this man had some connection with Dio. So they came to him, and they said to him, we were all around the car. There were two people in there. Somebody was in the front with him, but we didn't see them leave, and we don't know where they went, and we don't understand what happened. But you know him. What does this mean? What is this about? And so this man listened, and he said he's unsaved, and he said I don't know what that means, and he said I don't understand about that either. He said, but I know this, Dio knows God, and God is with Dio, and it will be something about that. And the people just, So about 3 days later, this man came to the church, and he said, I want to be saved today. And he got down on his knees. He dropped to his knees on the floor, and he said, I want to receive Christ today. I want to do this thing that Dio's been telling me about. I believe. And so he prayed to receive Christ within a few days. And then the next day, we go to the next slide, 3 other people came from the area, and they came and they also wanted to receive Christ, and they prayed for salvation also. So that was that's the end of the pictures. That was in January, mid-January of this year. And lots of stuff happens, and we don't tell it all. And there are many things that happen. I don't put in prayer letters, and I don't say too much, but all of that are things that take place up there. Let me give you a devotional thought from a verse, and then we can wrap it up. All right, Hebrews chapter 6, I want to read from verse 13 to 15. it says, "For when God made promise to Abraham, because he could swear by no greater, he sware by himself, saying, Surely blessing I will bless thee, and multiplying I will multiply thee. And so, after that he had patiently endured, he obtained the promise," talking there about Abraham. Now, there are two parts to that remain true today in the matter of blessing. And when I say blessing, it's blessing on what do you want God to bless? What area do you seek blessing? You should seek it on your own life. You want the blessing of God on your own life. If you're in ministry of any kind, you want the blessing of God on that. You want the blessing of God on using any gifts or talents or abilities you have, because the blessing of God makes a big difference. All right? It's not just religious speak. It's not just sort of one of those words that, we just have picked up in Christian language. The blessings of God make a very big difference in what you're doing. And it'll make a big difference in what happens or doesn't happen. The blessing of God. You should want the blessing of God. Okay, you should desire it. Now, it's a topic in itself. What does God bless? Well, one of the most important things to remember is that, firstly, God blesses himself. So when God sees you looking like him, he blesses that. When God sees you doing things that he would do, he blesses that. Okay, because he sees himself in that. When God sees your heart being like his heart, he blesses that. God blesses himself. And so God, that's the first thing. God is looking for that part. God's looking for that. And that you have many opportunities, by the way, where you show God how much you are like him, or you're trying to be like him, and times when you're not. And many times God will position you in a situation where you will be tested. And that test will reveal that. The idea of that test is that you will get to show what you are and what you do, what you believe. Really quickly, I had a pastor friend, it was Jason Murphy, who loves fishing, and so he wanted to buy, I'm going to be really quick, he wanted to buy a fishing reel. They were very expensive, he likes the right equipment. He went to a store, they had them there, and it was kind of down to like 20% of the real price. And he knew this is a mistake, that nobody sells these for these. It cannot possibly be, but that is the one I want. And so he said, I need to do the right thing. And he calls over one of the people who work there. A lady comes over and he says, look, this fishing reel, how much is it? And she goes, well, it's this much. And she tells him the cheap price. And he goes, are you sure? Are you no, that's it. That's what it says. That's it. But his heart is telling him, this is not correct. This cannot be the price. They have made a mistake. Now I don't know what you would do. Some people would go, well, if they marketed that, that's it. Other people would say, you know what? Somebody owns this store, and if I do this, I gain, but they lose. And that's the problem with gambling, by the way. I will get something, but others lose for me to get. And so he went to the counter and they said, oh, that's it, ding, and he went through. Well, he went home and now he's got his fishing reel that he's paid, 20% for, whatever it is. And he's feeling in his heart, this is not right. All right, do you know what that is? That's a test. That's it. That's like when you pay with $20 and someone thinks you gave them a 50. And instead of you getting back, 15, you get back 45. And you look at, that's a test. That's not a blessing. That's not good luck. That's a test. All right? Because right now, heaven and the Lord and the angels around you are watching to see, what are you going to do? All right, somebody smites you at work. They say things about you, it's not true. They put daggers in your back, so to speak. What are you going to do? That's a test. Right? Opportunity comes where you can give it back. What are you going to do? All right, all of those things is a test where you get to show who you are and what you believe and what you will do and who you believe's watching you. And it's what you do in all of those things that many people will not even know about that will affect the external blessings that come to you. So what happens is we see people on the outside who are getting blessed, and usually we will do this. If you're in ministry, this is a common one. What's the technique? What's the particular, how are you doing this? And we're kind of looking for an edge or a bit of information or a technique of some kind where I can replicate what you have. And we often look at it in that way, or we think, well, that person's just very talented, or that person's just, more gifted than I. But blessings come from God. All right, now I won't turn there, but in Matthew chapter 6, Jesus said, he said, when you give your alms, when you give your offering, don't do it in a way to show everyone. Do it privately or secretly. And he says this, and your heavenly Father that sees this in secret, and here's what it says, will reward you openly. Now don't read over that too quick. He said you did it and no one knew you did it. You purposed to just do what's right and do what's pleasing to God, and it was secret in the sense nobody knew. But wait, what comes to you is not secret, it's open. So what is somebody seeing who's looking on? Well, they see what's open. And they say, that guy just seems to get blessed. He's here and he's blessed. He goes there and he's blessed. And he just seems to have that. And by the way, Jesus said that about, he made the point about fasting and praying, and it's the same phrase. You do it secretly, but God reward you openly. All right, so your blessings are God dependent. That's the key. What happens today is that people do not have blessings in ministry or service, and instead of going to God and trying to understand these things, they look at some sort of carnal substitute. Well, how about we manufacture something? How about we make it feel like there's something? How about we do that? Religion has been doing that for thousands of years. The more religious a place is, and the less God is in a place, the more ornate the building will look. Did you hear that? You have to make it look religious. You have to have smoke and water and effects and glass, and you have to create a feel that God is there, because He's not there. But when He's really there, you don't need all that, because He speaks for Himself. And everybody can feel it when God turns up. And doesn't it feel good when it happens? And you don't have to manufacture that. When God comes and you can just feel it. And it's a wonderful thing when God turns up. It's a blessed. You just want to stay there. You just want to stay there. We had a wonderful conference in December. There was, 300-400 people there. And it was blessed, and the meeting, it was in our building, and then the meeting was over. And I slipped away to do something just as the meeting ended, and I was coming back. And my plan was to sort of just walk back in the building and think about what happened there over that last few days. And the guys had packed up everything really quick. And suddenly there was no sign anyone had even been there. I mean, everything was packed up and put away, and it was, it's just, just transformed. But here was the thing. It really didn't matter what it looked like. You can't replicate the reality of when God was there. And then, and I won't say he's not with us, but that it ended. There's something blessed about God showing up and the Lord being there. Your blessings are dependent upon God. You need to understand that. Okay? We have people in the mission fields who don't understand that. We have people pastoring churches, they don't understand that. They think their blessing is learning from someone who runs, a few thousand people and they've got a technique. Or I'm telling you, you're looking in the wrong places. That's a mistake. It's more blessed to be fewer and have God there than to be many more and not have God there. Amen? I mean, not that we don't say, well, I'm going to stay small. We're not saying that. But we're saying, small or big, that's really not the issue. The issue is God there? That's what it's about. And that's what you want to aspire to. And you want that on your family. You want that on your money. You want that on whatever you do. If you're in ministry, you definitely want it on ministry. If you're on the mission field, if you don't have it, you're in a really sad state. Because it's really awful swimming in a sea of darkness when you can't find where God is. You've got to have it. So that's God's part. But then our part with that is the second part here. So God said, he promised, it said that he swore by his own self, because there's no higher way you could promise something to Abraham. He said, I will bless you. Blessing, I'll bless you. And multiplying, I'll multiply you. And it's normal, by the way, to see increase. Welcome it when it happens. Don't resent it. Somebody's in my seat. Good. Because last week it was only you. And now someone else. Someone parked in my spot. Well, good. It's not really your spot anyway, but rejoice, rejoice. There's so many people here I don't know. Well, praise the Lord. Get to know them. I mean, welcome it. If God enlarges the pond, welcome it. Don't resent that. You know why people resent that? Because when the pond is small, you can be a big fish. But when God enlarges the pond, it diminishes your influence. You're not a big fish anymore. I've seen people leave over that. All right, so welcome it. But our part, God will bless. It said after he patiently endured. And that's what I want to say. You've got to keep going. Right? You've got to keep going. Well, I would never have thought that this would be in my life. Well, I never would have thought that this would have happened to me. Well, I just don't know where that came from. You have to keep going. Your part is to endure. You know the other word, the other phrase where endure is used? To endure hardness as a good soldier. You know what endure hardness? Does it feel hard? Yes. Yes. Is it hard in Thailand? Yes. Well, I went there for 10 days to Phuket and I had a wonderful time. I don't know it'd be hard about it. Yeah, well, it's a little different being there as a missionary versus your Phuket holiday, okay? It's a little different. People don't quite get that. Oh, I love Thailand. Oh, do you? I love Thai food. Oh, do you? Well, come and try and do something for God and let's see how much they love you. I get more attention from the authorities there than most people get. And I won't get into it all because they follow me about everywhere I go. And there's a lot of things we contend with there, a lot of things. And it's not about having a holiday, and we're not sitting under palm trees drinking coconut juice, and that's not what's happening. When you're trying to do something for God in a dark place, it is hard. It is hard. But God says this, after he patiently endured, that's our part. You've got to keep going. When you wake up on the hard day, and you've got to face a hard thing. And you've got to face something you never thought you'd have to face. You keep going. You keep going. Because God is with you. And God is going to stay with you. And blessings will come. And blessings are on the road that you just have to keep walking on it. There are things ahead of you right now that have your name on it. There are blessings now. It's waiting for you. And you don't have to do anything but just keep going and you'll meet that thing. Time is going to deliver that to you. You've just got to keep going. After he patiently endured. And that's our part in the process. There are a lot of hard things. There are many, many things I don't put in a prayer letter, and I don't feel I can share. All my prayer letters are not just read by supporting churches. Do you understand that? All our email is monitored. All our bank accounts are monitored. All our phone calls are listened to. And it goes much further that I won't get into. Okay, so you have to understand that there are things that we can't always say, and there are things that we can't always tell. We're no longer in a day where you can just go and speak to a group of people and what you said is not going to leave that building. Everything now is online. The world can follow you everywhere now. Our devices are microphones that are listened to easily, particularly by government entities, and I'll just leave it at that. So there are hard things no matter what you do. There's hard things in Australia. There's hard things about serving, but your part is to keep going and just stay with it, okay? He saved you, okay? He loves you. He doesn't have another son like you or a daughter. You're unique, okay? And he has you here. And he has you here because he has things for you to do. And all you need to do is by the grace of God, you just get up and you face another day. Some of you know Doug Fisher. I remember Brother Fisher saying to me years ago, he said, in the midst of very dark depressions and days, he said, I would just wake up and think, I can't do it. I can't go on anymore. I can't face another day. I cannot. And he said, then I'd say to myself, come on, Doug, just one day. You can do just one. Just one. And he said, I'd say to myself, well, I might be able to do just one. And he said, I'd get up and I'd do just one. And he said, the next day, he said, I'd say it all again. And I say to myself, come on, Doug. Just one. You can do just one. And how many times I've thought about that. He shared that with me privately. Now it's not private, right? But he shared that with me privately. You know how many times I've said, come on, Wayne. Just one. You can do one. You can get by today. Just one more you can do. There are hard things. And God understands that. And he does give grace. But our part is to endure and to keep going. And God will do his part. And he'll bless you. And he won't just bless you now. He's going to bless you with heavenly reward. And not near enough is talked about that. We ought to be talking about that much more because heavenly reward is everything. Heavenly reward is lasting. Heavenly reward is to receive it from the Lord himself. And he positions you, are you listening? I got to finish. He positions you to get reward. He puts you in a position where you can do something and get reward. He wants to give you heavenly reward. And he gives you opportunities to do that. I had a situation, I'm finished, but a person in Thailand, well, that was probably too much already. A person in Thailand who was not a Thai came to me about money problems they were having. And I listened and I tried to give some counsel. And anyway, we parted company, and then I got a message, and they said, "Can you give me this amount of money?" It was a fair amount, and I thought, come on, mate, there's millions of ties here, and we're all giving everything we have, and you text a missionary and say, well, I mean, what do you think I have? That was my initial reaction. Like if you go home, work it out, but hey, we're at the cutting edge here, and you're not a tie. And so that was my initial reaction. And then I felt the Lord say, give it to him. Now, he asked to borrow it, and I wouldn't have done that anyway, but I felt God say, give it to him. I'm talking a fair amount of money. And I said, Lord, I mean, I will if you tell me, if it's you. And he was like, it's me, and you should do it. Give it to him. All right, now when that happens, you've got a choice to make. Because it's no longer about this guy. It's about here. See, it's moved out of this, and now it's moved to here. So you say, what did you do? Well, I did what I gave it to him. And it was everything. It was everything. So I texted and I said, no, I'm not going to loan you anything, but I will give you this. Give me your bank account number and I'll transfer it now. And I did. And that was fine, and it was done. And I'm still here, and God blesses, and it's fine. Now, God will position you for opportunities for reward. And that was about obedience, and it was about saying, Lord, you know, it's all yours. Wayne, you keep saying that. You keep telling everybody else that, right? So now I'm telling you, give it. And the test is, when God says that, what do you do? Right? And it'll happen to you too. And if you're faithful in those things and you just do what the Lord had asked you to do, there's blessing now, but there's heavenly reward. And you're going to be glad. You know, some people say, Brother Sehmish, I don't need a heavenly reward. You know, if he just gives me a little shack out the back, well, I'll be happy for that. You know, that's just foolish. You won't be happy because you're going to look in the eyes of your Saviour. And then after you look at his eyes, you're going to follow his arms down, you're going to look at his hands. And then you look at his feet. And you'll realize all that he did for you. And you'll look where you are. And when that day comes, and it's coming, nobody's going to say, you know, I think I gave a little too much. I think I went a little bit over the top with my Christianity. No, nobody's going to say that. Nobody's going to feel they did too much, went too far, and gave. Nobody's going to feel that. But there's probably going to be a lot of other people who are going to feel very ashamed. You see? So, well, I'll be in heaven, you'll be in heaven, and you'll be before God. All right? So go with God when he gives you opportunities, serve him, take hold of the opportunities, get the blessing, and allow him to position you for the heavenly reward. Thank you for praying for us. Brother Sehmish, what are you going to do? By the grace of God, I'm going to patiently endure and get on with it and keep serving, and I'm sure you're going to do the same, and we'll see each other either here or elsewhere, but let us continue. Thank you, Pastor.